If you're expecting a bunch of guru fluff and get-rich-quick garbage, you've come to the wrong place. This show is the no bullshit real deal.
No bullshit real deal.
I'm Larry Harbolt, and they call me the real deal. Welcome to my show. This show is aimed at providing you with quality information so you can make more profit in the fastest way possible without making costly mistakes from the deals you do.
Let's get started.
Hello, everyone. You know, one of the things that I talk about a lot on these podcasts is negotiating skills. And something I realized that I haven't really driven home is one of my negotiating tips that I rarely speak of, that I use many, many times while I'm talking to sellers trying to buy their house. You know, most of the time when we talk to a seller, they all say they want cash, which is not true. They want what the cash can do for them. They don't just want a bunch of paper with green ink on it. So when I have a seller that tells me that they're not willing to allow me to pay them every month for years to come, when a seller tells me they want all of their money from the sale of their property, and that is a property that they do not live in, this is an important point. I always ask them, what do you plan to do with the money? I have to ask that question. If I don't ask that question, I will never be able to make a good buying decision. Now, if they tell me they plan to put the money into the bank to generate an income that's going to grow their income so that builds up over time, that is something that these people, usually they're looking for safety, they're looking for security, because their money's in a bank account. It's guaranteed by the Federal Reserve, so they believe that that money is guaranteed. The problem is they're not getting anything for it. So when they tell me that they want all their money at closing with the idea they're going to put it into some kind of a bank account or a fund, I always ask them, point blank, how much is your bank currently paying right now? When they plan to put the money after they sell the property. See, when I hear this, I recognize these sellers, they don't have a clue what they're thinking about. They don't understand money at all. They don't understand that according to statistics, for instance, according to USA Today, recently I saw the 5-year certificates of deposits nationwide, the highest interest rate that I could find was 1.28%. And that's if they deposit the money for 5 years. And folks, you got to think about this. Inflation rate is over 2%. They are actually losing money every month, every year that money is invested at that rate for at least 5 years. Some of these CD rates are for $100,000 minimum deposit. You have to understand this. And something I recommend, if you get a USA Today on the front cover, bottom left, many times they will have the CD rates of banks nationwide. Cut that out. Cut that little clip out. Take it, have it blown up, laminate it, take it with you when you're talking to a seller to show them that what they're going to get in the bank is not what you can give them. That's very, very important. See, most banks are currently paying 0.25% to 0.75% on most accounts. Well, let's think about that for a minute. Let's say a seller sells their house they do not live in as their primary residence. And this is an important thing to remember. They usually have closing costs that will come out of the money that they get from the property when they sell it. And in most cases, they're going to have to pay a real estate sales commission, plus they're going to have other incidental costs. That is a fact of life. Nobody's going to get away from that. Now, once the closing of the sale is over, they walk away with a check, don't they? That they plan to put in their bank to give them an income, especially if they're older, retirement age people who have plans to use that money from their account as their bank to subsidize their retirement lifestyle. This is a critical point. This is why I like to deal with older individuals. I understand them. I have found most younger people, they want the cash because they either want to buy another house or they want to get into a business. They want to do so many things. It's harder to convince them to take monthly payments. But the older people, they're getting to an age where they're thinking about getting their first pension check. they're thinking about getting their first Social Security check. Why not negotiate with them so they can get another check, like an annuity, that goes along with the others to subsidize their retirement lifestyle? I can do much better. So if you can help subsidize their retirement, they're going to have a few more costs from the sale of their property if they don't live in it. You have to remember this. First of all, they've got to pay the depreciation taxes for all of the years they depreciated the property that they're selling, and pay those taxes they didn't pay over the years. They have to pay those now in the year of the sale. They will also have to pay the capital gains tax on any profit they get above what they sold it over what they originally paid for the property. That all has to be paid in the year of the sale. After they deduct all of those costs that out of the check that they received from the sale, that check was a lot smaller. It just isn't what they thought it was. But see, nobody has to think about this. If you're an investor and you know what you're doing, you listen to these podcasts, you realize those are real costs. Now, what I just explained to you is something you're going to need to know to become an expert at explaining to every seller who has plans to put the money that they get into the bank to help subsidize their retirement income. If you can convince them to allow you to pay them monthly, there's so many benefits when they're selling a property they do not live in that you can give them. They still are going to have to pay the taxes for the depreciation in the year of the sale that they didn't pay over time. Now, depreciation is what the IRS allows the owner of investment property to not have to pay the taxes for the rundown condition. As the property gets older, it gets in worse condition. They allow you to not have to pay 1/27 and 1/2% of what you paid for a property. So every year for 27 and a half years, you can deduct 1/27 and 1/2% of what you paid for a property that you do not have to pay taxes on. But when you sell that property, you have to recapture all of that you didn't pay and pay the taxes that weren't paid over that 27 years. Those are costs that you have to pay if you sell a house you do not live in. This is critical. As long as you understand that, see, they don't have to pay all of their capital gains tax if they'll do a seller financing deal with me, because you're going to pay them monthly over time. So they're getting installment income tax treatment from the IRS. This allows the seller to only have to pay capital gains taxes on the 12 payments that they receive in any calendar year. This is a great benefit for the seller, but it only helps them if they take installment treatment. If they get all cash for their house, they've got to pay all the depreciation tax they didn't pay. They got to pay the capital gains tax in the year of the sale. Now, I have found that there are only a few reasons why they demand all of their money at closing. I've sat at many kitchen tables, talked to many sellers. Number one, most of them don't trust you. They don't know you. They don't know if they can trust you to pay them every month. That's one of the biggest reasons. They don't want to have to foreclose if you stop paying to get back a property that has been destroyed by your tenants that you didn't take care of. They've all heard the horror stories of people taking their property, say they'll pay, not pay, destroy the property, they get it back in terrible condition. Now they've got a real problem in their life, especially if they're older. Now, some of them may have a specific need for the money. That's fine. You can't help that. You can't have the best of every deal. Some people are going to want the cash because they need it. And many of them, they simply don't understand what you are offering them is better for them than if they get all their money at closing. So what's all the point of this? If the seller's willing to lose a large portion of the money they get from the sale of the property that they do not live in, to put the money into an investment such as a bank CD for an extremely small amount of money, if you can become proficient at explaining all of the negatives of getting all of their money at closing and be well rehearsed at explaining the positives of what you're offering over time, and you explain that if they're willing to accept a smaller return from their bank, why not let you give them a better return by either giving them more price for their property or a higher interest rate, but with a smaller monthly payment? Just might be a better return for them. Remember, this works better for people who do not live in the property and they're retiring age people. You got to be good at what I'm suggesting. Now, the other thing is if they live in the house as their primary residence. This is why I do not buy properties that they live in. I want non-owner occupied properties. If they live in the property and they're selling it, if they get all cash, number one, they've never taken depreciation, so they don't have to reclaim it. Number two, IRS Section 121. I've mentioned this 100 times. When they sell, an individual seller can take up to $250,000 of their profit tax-free. A couple can take up to $500,000 of their profit tax-free. They don't have the same taxing consequences as those who are selling a property that they've held for investment they do not live in. That is why I only focus on the properties where they do not live in them. I think this is very important. So what you've got to do is you got to be good at what I'm suggesting, and you'll be able to do more seller financing deals. Now, not every deal you're going to get these terms, but you'll do more deals. This is important. You need to understand this. I have to understand the logic of why sellers say the things they do. If you want to be good at negotiating with those people and putting together more and better deals. Now, I've spent 40 years doing this. I have talked to so many people. You just can't imagine how many kitchen tables I've sat at. I've heard all the reasons. And so I have a good idea of how sellers think in many cases, not all cases, because you can't know what every seller really wants. But like I've said 1,000 times, if you don't ask the right questions, you're never going to get the right answers you need to put together a profitable deal for you that you hope is good for their family and it's going to be good for your family. This is critical. You have to understand how to overcome them saying they want cash. This is just another negotiating tip. These people that want cash, they don't understand that what you're offering them can be far better for them, give them a far better return, give them more money to live on in their retirement years than if they put it in the bank. Now, some of these deals, you may have to give them extra collateral, not just the house you're buying from them. If you don't own other properties, you might put up your car, your truck, your boat, something that you own as extra collateral. So if you don't pay, they can take that away from you. It will make them feel safer. Just understand you can offer them something better than them getting all cash if they do not live in the property. Remember that. So I think this is an important thing for you to know. I wanted to go over it again because negotiating is one of the key factors in your success in this business. So that's going to about wrap up this episode of my podcast for this week. Hope you found some value from today's topic, and I invite you to head over to LarryHarbolt.com, register to keep up to date with my tips, my ideas, to help you become a better real estate investor. If you're not already registered, head over to LarryHarbolt.com/register to get access to my free phone script on how to negotiate with sellers over the phone. Be sure to tell a friend and leave me a review on your podcast player. See, your reviews help me to know that the information I'm providing to you has value. That's important to me. So I wish you all to have a great week. See you next time on the Real Deal Podcast.
Thanks for listening to the Real Deal Podcast with Larry Harbolt. To learn more about investing in real estate, head on over to LarryHarbolt.com and register for his educational tips and articles delivered by email.